Okay, I'm going to do my boat walkthrough like I promised. There's a lot of videos on YouTube I watch, all these boats. I went to the boat show, but I'm happy with my boat. Didn't spend quite as much on it as I would have at the boat show, but just kind of wanted to show some of the upgrades. Now typically in my last boat I like center consoles, but you can see this is a dual console, and you can fish all the way around the boat. I'll show you that in a minute. My dad had one when I was younger, and I realized dual console works really well as well as a fishing boat. Alright, so I want to start in the back of the boat here. Some of the things I added. Didn't pay too much for this boat. I paid, engines only got 400 hours and change when I bought it about 3 years ago. And I put on, I don't know, probably about 150 since then. Caught a lot of fish in this boat. Can show some pictures. So spent $11,500 on it. If I come around here, I'll show you one of the first upgrades I did. You can see these lights down here. These are Lumitec Sea Blaze lights. They change colors. I'll turn them on in a minute. There's one on each side. I also installed here and here my own Lowrance HDS7. And this right here I added, which is a high-speed pickup for my live well. I really use my live well for crappie only. I don't really use it for bait. I have a shad tank for that. When I sold my other boat, I bought 3 things with the money: a shad tank, a new trolling motor, and the electronics. And I also linked my electronics to my trolling motor. Okay, I'll go ahead and get in. I did upgrade the trailer just about a week ago. Okay, this is the back of the boat. You got 2 seats. Got my batteries under here. I installed the trolling motor myself, and I ran the wire 6 gauge all the way up to the front, and that's where the trolling motor goes. I'll get the trolling motor out in a little while. And back here I added an acrylic lid for my live well. Even has the Sea Hunt logo on it. It's boatoutfitters.com. Just ignore the dirtiness of the boat. Took it out and ran it today, and I got mud on my feet. So anyway, you've got 2 seats here, a captain's chair. I don't have my electronics in right now, but if you just walk here, you can see if you are fighting a fish in the center of the boat, you can fight them 360. No big deal. Okay, got a cooler right here for your drinks and stuff. Drains overboard. Got a really big fish box, and previous owner had life jackets, all kind of stuff in there. I put all that stuff here, and now this thing gets loaded up with fish, either crappie or striped bass. Has a 4-speaker stereo system, works pretty good. I did replace the speakers. They were probably 16 years old, or however old the boat was when I got it, 14 years. They had some dry rot in there, and some of the speakers had some holes in it. They're pretty cheap. I think it was like $50 for a pair. I eventually placed all 4. Okay, what else? Added this. I can't recommend that enough. That comes in so handy. I want to show you the lights. This I added in. I'm going to put a rubber thing on it as well. These are my lights. Now the main thing and reason for these lights is at night when I'm setting the boat up at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning. I didn't have any interior lights in the boat. These are Lumitec rail mount lights. They're 12 inches each. Okay, they're not cheap, but I did have the cheap lights in my boat, and it was not worth it. I had to replace them 3 times, and eventually I went with these. These are high quality. They're about $100 each, and I got 3. So If I turn the lights off and back on, it'll go through the full color spectrum. Once it goes through the color spectrum, it'll go through the full color spectrum again over a 3-minute period. It'll just cycle through slowly. If you find a color you like, let's say you want green interior, off and on real quick, and it'll hold that color now. So I use red actually. I couldn't believe it until somebody showed me one night when I was out catching bait late. Turn it off, back on, there's red, off on, and it'll hold red. You get no bugs with red light. I was amazed. I can have my little running light on in the back there on the pole, and it'll be covered in mayflies. But you have red in the interior, you get no bugs. I mounted the switch for the underwater lights back here. Turn that on. You can see they're on now. They will go through the cycle of colors as well. I use green underwater. Green works best to penetrate the water if you're going to be bait fishing. Doesn't take very long for the shad to gather around it. Now again, if I switch it off and on, I've used blue before too. It'll hold that color now. If you just leave the lights on, to restart it, turn it off for 3 seconds. You start off on white. If you leave the lights on, it'll go through the whole color spectrum in 15 seconds. Then it'll cycle through over a 3-minute period, just like the rail lights. And that's, you know, if you're parked or you're partying or whatever. But green is my favorite for the lakes. It penetrates the water the best. And then for the interior would be red. Okay. I will go get my trolling motor and show you. I put the plug in here. I installed that myself. I also installed a breaker. Here is the locker for the anchor, which I don't really use anymore. And this is the plug-in to plug into my trolling motor that it connects to my Lowrance unit. I can control it from there. This is really nice. It's on the boat. And I just pop it off each time. Just take a U-bar pin, goes in here, snaps in place, and you're good to go. I'll show you that now. Okay, here's the trolling motor installed. Like I mentioned earlier, I just put it over the top of that smaller block, and here's the pin. Pulls out, and push it back in and lock it. And it's on there solid. Installed this myself. It's the Motor Guide XI5. It works with the Lowrance unit, so you can control it from the Lowrance unit. The other thing I had to do on this boat is I had to cut the bow rail off. So there was 2 holes right here. I replaced those with fold-down cleats. The fold-down cleats, I was going to use recess cleats, but you got to draw a big wide hole for a recess cleat. For these cleats, you just have to drill 2 holes, and you're good to go. So I decided to go with fold-down cleats. And the main reason I did that is I had to remove my bow cleat to put the trolling motor in. The trolling motor is sitting where the bow cleat was. Now, for the remainder of the bow rail, I went in through where my speaker's installed. I turned this around and tightened this down and bought a 120-degree knuckle and put that on. This is really solid. So now, if I have cushions that go in the front, and when my girls are sitting there, they can use the bow rail when we're under power. They can just grab it as a grab rail. So instead of remove the whole thing, it kind of came in handy. I also have a blue carpet that fits this perfectly for when we're skiing or just recreation. But when I'm fishing, obviously I just leave it out and I scrub it out. The bimini top is off right now. I take it off about November and I put it back on in March. In the cold winter months I just don't use it. So keep it out of the way. Well, that's basically it. Hope you enjoyed it. I've enjoyed tinkering with the boat. Definitely saved a lot of money by going used. If you want any tips on, or I could provide tips later on, you know, how to check for the motor. When you're buying a new boat, you can get a bad motor. I don't recommend buying a rebuilt motor unless you've had good luck with that before. It just depends. Find out who rebuilt it and then talk to your mechanic about it. I'll just put it that way. I use Larry Marine in Plano, and he knows places that do it. Some do it right, some, you know, could be a little iffy. So if you know who did it, that makes a difference. I don't want to discourage people from buying a rebuilt engine or a new power head or anything like that. But there's ways to tell if the motor's good. Obviously, you want to run it or take it out on the water. There's a few tips I might put in the comments on checking for compression. So I mean, if you're cranking the motor, one of the ways you can actually do a compression test, I recommend you take it to the dealer, or excuse me, your mechanic, to have him check it out. But if you're confident enough, like when you're cranking the engine, if it's a 4-cylinder engine, this is a 6. If it's a 4-cylinder engine and you hear it goes through a cycle, like 1, 2, 3, 4, it should sound the same as it's going through. If it goes wing, wing, there's no compression in one of the cylinders. It'll just spin real through. You can also get on top of the engine and spin the flywheel while it's turned off. And if it should be really hard, and then it kind of goes through and releases, hard and then releases. Do that 4 times. If one of the cycles it goes through real easy, then you probably got bad compression. I might have to demonstrate that. That might not make a lot of sense, just me talking about it, but that's one way. Best thing is to take it to your mechanic and have him check it out. Or definitely do a water test. I didn't do a water test with this boat. I did run the engine, however, before I bought it. Cranked it up. I have a lot of confidence in these Mercury 2-strokes. I've had really good success with them and taken good care of them, you know, my whole life. The newer 4-strokes, I mean, I know Yamaha's probably the biggest one out there. I don't have experience with 4-stroke Mercuries, just Yamahas, with buddies that fish in the salt water in Florida. So anyway, if you got any questions, I just thought it would be fun to do this video and just show some of the things I did to the boat. I can post some pictures. You've probably seen my videos. I catch a lot of fish in this boat, and there's nothing I can do in this boat that you can do in a bass boat. It doesn't draw that much water. I think maybe 13 inches. And you know, that trolling motor, the other nice feature it has on it is a jog feature. So crappie trolling is really nice. It holds you in the spot very tightly, and you can jog the boat left or right 5 feet, frontwards or backwards 5 feet, by just hitting the arrows. So if you want to move 10 feet forward, click twice and the boat will adjust 10 feet. And for trolling around brush or rocks, it's really nice. Your bite starts to slow and you jog left or right. I've even done that hybrid fishing around the humps and drop-offs. Bump the boat left or right and it'll trigger a strike when you're fishing live bait. So anyway, yeah, I do have an anchor, but I think I've used it once in 3 years because I have spot lock on the trolling motor. It's really great. All right, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you got any questions, let me know. Just had fun making the video. Bye. Last comment I forgot. For hours on a boat engine, mine has an hour meter, so I can see it's like 580 hours or whatever it is now. Mercury, I know at least, recommends you rebuild the engine, or it's usually time for a rebuild around 2,000 to 2,500 hours. Probably in older cars you kind of equate to this, because I know cars last a lot longer these days. 2,000 hours on a outboard motor is equivalent to 100,000 hard miles on a car. We'll put it that way. I know that people have cars that go 300,000 miles and they post about boat engines that go 5,000 hours and things like that, but just in general, if you're going to buy one, would you buy a car with 100,000+ miles on it, or 200,000 miles on it, whatever the case may be? Like I said, cars last a lot longer these days in terms of miles, but it's just up to you. But you get something that has 500 hours on it, that's nothing. That's like 25,000 miles on a used car. So anyway, that's it. Bye.